Annihilation, Civilization 5, and holiday games. This is Staying In. Right, lads, so I apologise for being late.
It's alright.
I've been away with my girlfriend's family for the weekend. Now, my significant other, my partner, is Slovakian. And Easter's a big thing in Slovakia.
Is it?
It's huge. And we turned up there for breakfast, which we ended up having at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Of course.
Picture this: 2 plates full to the brim with more meat and more varieties of meat than I've ever seen in my life, just sliced.
Is this 2 plates each? Or
no, 2 big plates in the centre of the table.
Okay.
But there's like 4 layers on each plate of meat and cheese.
Okay, so this is a continental.
Completely.
Okay.
Which is good for us because we're about to go away to Europe together, where it's just going to be continental breakfast as far as the eye can see. But this was Slovak style, and they do things proper. So it was basically just meat. I mean, I basically ate my way through the animal kingdom. Mm-hmm. It felt like that. Even the bread had meat in it.
Brilliant.
Was it meatloaf?
I'm pretty sure the squash did as well. Literally layers of this. I get about a quarter of the way through this plate, 2 plates. I have about a quarter on each plate, so about half the plate in total, and I'm quite full. And then I remember my girlfriend telling me that it's like traditionally you'd eat this out of a basket, and it's bad luck not to finish the whole basket.
Oh.
And
no.
her dad just gives me this kind of little twinkle in his eye kind of look, like, okay, you going to do this then? Are you going to...
If you want to date my daughter, you're finishing this meat.
Yeah, exactly. Are you going to condemn this household to bad luck for the next year by not finishing this?
That is brilliant.
So I ate so much, I went past my Christmas limit, and honestly, It was so bad. At one point, I breathed in and I cracked a rib. It felt like a cracked rib, but honestly, I couldn't move. I really couldn't. And then we woke up again today for breakfast, and it was like Groundhog Day. It was like the level. It was like an escape room. It just reset. The same 2 plates, full to the
Chris,
brim on the
was
table.
Was it like when you woke up, your last memory was eating? Like you just like, I just ate a second ago. No, Chris, you've been asleep for 10 hours. Like you were just asleep at the table. Like I've got to get my rest wherever I can.
Yeah, literally, it was like an anaconda that just eaten like a sheep, and it needed like a week to digest it. It was incredible, absolutely incredible. Like just and the cheeses as well. It was just amazing. But really, I mean, honestly, I've eaten enough for a week now. I honestly,
that's not true, Chris.
I mean, vegetarianism is largely an abstract concept in Slovakia, I've understood. So,
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Easter like a really big deal then?
It's huge. I think it's a largely Catholic country, and my partner spent some time.
Orthodox, maybe?
I don't know the ins and outs of it. I'm not the best person to ask, but I know for a fact my partner also, she grew up in Greece as well, which is Easter's also a very big deal there as well.
Yeah,
it's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's bigger than Christmas in some regards. Not that they have like a little league table, but it's pretty big.
So, Chris, is this like, because I can eat a lot, but for me to eat a lot, the situation has got to be very social. So if you guys were coming round and we were just sitting around a table, chatting, playing a game, but in the centre of the table were like 20 Big Macs and 55 chicken nuggets, I could happily make my way through that because, we'd be chatting and drinking and doing other things.
But Sam, what if I told you that if you didn't eat those 20 Big Macs, you would condemn the household to bad luck for the year?
But that's what I mean. Like, so in this situation, was it very much like a sit-down family meal?
Yeah.
But added onto that an eating challenge? Because for me, that sounds like the worst thing.
I think it kind of became a little bit of an eating challenge. I obviously want to impress the family, and her
well, so they chose your specialist subject, eating.
But I mean, it was so lovely. Like, they want to share as much of that culture with me as possible. So I'm learning bits and pieces of the language. But her dad introduced me to this morning to essentially what was their version of haggis. Like, I don't even know what was in it, but and he is tough as nails, this man. He's got his lovely twinkle in his eye. He's just such a sweetheart, but he's tough. Like, he just sat opposite me. He'd sliced a thick slice of this for me. and it's basically just every kind of meat. The rest of basically the misc pile of the butchers down on their back. This used to work in the abattoir. Slice of that, and the way he eats it, his preference is to have half a sliced raw onion on the top with vinegar poured over the top, and he just eats it.
What?
It's incredible.
But what I love about this as well is that, like, Chris, when you say that you're learning the language, usually when you learn a language, the first sort of phrases that you learn are like, yes, please, and I'm okay.
Ano prosim.
Thank you very much. And so when someone's serving you something and trying to communicate them in Slovak, all they're hearing is, yes, please, thank you. And just like you not learnt the language to say, in fact, that might be a bit too much meat product for my liking.
And it just made me think that, like, we don't really have much Easter traditions here. In Birmingham, my school was quite pagan. So in my school, we didn't have, like, it wasn't a C of E school, so it would have quite straight. It was like the Wicker Man. So we'd have maypole dancing.
Sorry,
and you get prizes.
Chris, hold on a second. So as many a British person, I went to a C of E school.
No,
right?
I didn't.
Yeah,
you see,
I did. Yeah,
I didn't.
Yeah. Okay. C of E school is like it's basically just a normal school, except they force some prayer on you once a week or something like that. Now, you're saying that you went to a pagan school.
Well, I mean, I don't know how else to describe it, really, because that's like a kind of pagan tradition, the maypole dancing.
Did you have, like, assembly amongst, like, monolithic stones?
Yeah, Chris, you weren't like slaughtering lambs every new moon, were you? Jesus Christ.
I do remember the Ofsted inspector getting put in a giant wicker man.
Kids, if you don't draw a giant naked man in white stones on the side of this hill, you won't get an A+ in geography.
I mean, we weren't like. It's not like we were kind of like. I mean, I don't want to offend any druids, but it wasn't like, you know, what you're kind of thinking, that stereotypical kind of way. But it was interesting. The kind of traditions we drew from were kind of a slightly pagan with a small c, not a capital P, small p, not a capital P. That kind of paganism.
How do you spell
with
pagan?
a small c?
I don't know what you're talking about. Today, I went to bed at 3 p.m. and just ate an entire chocolate, like an Easter egg, and then fell asleep for an hour.
That, I think, for the majority of people, which is kind of unfortunate in a way, is Easter is the day of the year where it's legitimate to eat chocolate for breakfast.
Oh no.
But what's made Easter so brilliant this year, and I wish this could happen every year. Like at the moment, the church, parts of the English diocese, are lobbying to have Easter on the same day every year, like Christmas. Because at the moment, Easter is on a sort of spurious calendar where no one's ever quite certain. A bit like when the clocks go forward and back.
Yeah.
Like, no one's ever quite certain when it's actually going to happen. And even when they tell you, they don't believe you. But what was brilliant about this year, and if I was lobbying on part of the church, like, I'd love this to happen every year, is Easter Sunday was the same day as April Fool's Day.
Well, that has been this year, hasn't it? I think the last time that happened was 1956.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's fantastic because it's made Easter so much more fun.
Yeah.
Because people have been like I saw someone on Twitter, it was just like, time to get the kids Easter party pack ready, and they were dipping Brussels sprouts in chocolate and hazelnuts and putting them in Ferrero Rocher packets, and I was just like,
perfect.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, what better occasion than a religious festival that has been so bastardized to teach kids that having tons of chocolate is great, but because it's on April Fool's Day, suddenly the power's back in the parents' hands, so they can dip with their kids.
Are there any other holidays that you'd like to kind of mega mix, like take two of them and create like Halloween and Valentine's Day?
Oh,
I'm sure there's some horrible, scary stories that, you know.
what? Like goth dating? Good, just trampling across lots of different cultural sensitive buttons here. We've offended the pagans, we've offended the Christians, we've offended the Goths. Good, well, we've offended everyone now.
Right, this lads, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. What I'm looking at now, right, I'm on a website at the moment, okay?
Yeah.
Called, and the website is it is gamesmediabritlist.com.
Oh yeah.
Right, this is ridiculous. This is right.
Is this an April Fool's Day thing?
I mean, of all the pranks I saw at April Fool's Day, actually one of the funniest things I saw was someone posted April Fool's Day, the one day of the year that people will legitimately question stories that they see, hunt down the right sources to see if it's true on the internet.
I like that.
Very true.
Yeah.
It's very telling.
Obviously said it in a more succinct way than I did. Anyway, so I'm on this website called GamesMediaBritList.com.
Sure.
www.GamesMediaBritList.com. And
this is a very illustrious list, isn't it?
It's a very illustrious list because in the best podcast and radio section, we're bloody in it. We're in it. And I don't want to start, like, stroking my belly about this.
I don't think that's the phrase, Sam.
I don't think that is a phrase, full stop.
I don't think that's any phrase.
Blowing my fingers.
You don't hear Olympic gold medalists saying, "Oh, I don't want to stroke my belly about this, but I did get a gold in 100 metres."
All right, I don't want to jump the elbow.
Right. Should we just...
But
okay.
I'm trying to be... what am I trying to be? I'm trying to be... humble.
It's
like
weird.
The pie.
It's weird.
It's weird, isn't it?
It is
because
weird.
We're bloody in it.
Yeah.
And, you know, you look at, like, some of the other nominees in just any of the sections. It's like, well, these are all real people.
They're like real people who do, like, this
who
for
actually
real.
spend most of the time on their shows talking about video games.
Yeah. So to be specific, the Games Media Brit List is it's a Games Media award, and essentially it is for people who make media around video games specifically, or have content in it that is video games adjacent in the very least. So there are a few like tech shows and stuff like that are sometimes like, you know, that are part of it. And yeah, like you look at this list and it's like, you know, there's pals of ours on there, but we're like, yeah, well, obviously they're on there because they're like the BBC, and there's IGN, and there's One Life Left, and there's Rock, Paper, Shotgun, and you're like, yeah, real shows. And Video Gamer. Oh, and Kane and Rince. Have you listened to Kane and Rince?
They're brilliant.
They're brilliant. Like, they're genuinely, like, they are the smartest podcast ever. Like, they take these video game topics and then talk about them in a really intellectual, intelligent way, and they just cover so many games. They're brilliant. Loads of fans and all that sort of stuff. And then there's us.
Yeah.
Halfway down the list. And it's like, I don't know if they realise they've added us on there.
I mean, do they know what a flexible cystoscopy is?
I don't know. I'm so...
They must... Do you think they listened to that episode and thought, oh, that sounds smart?
Yeah. On they go. Yeah, no, ludonarrative discourse. Yeah, no, whatever. Like, no. Don't want to talk about any of that. Something about how someone's been playing Titanfall 2 years after it came out. Like,
topical news such as that.
Topical news. But there you go. I think that's... I am like, for all the taking the piss and stuff, I am really excited. It's very, very cool. And I can't believe that we're on there, and it's super, super
and
amazing.
This is a proper awards evening we're going to be going to.
Oh, yeah, no, it's a proper awards evening. There's like...
Oh, my God.
So I'm assuming that there's going to be...
who will you be wearing, Pete?
I'll be wearing Pikachu. So
Pete will be wearing his fencing whites.
It's true, yeah.
He's running
with scuba gear.
I'll be slapping those on. But I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna. It's gonna be weird to just like wonder, because I've been to an award thing like this before. Didn't win.
Was that your graduation?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the award was, thank you for doing 3 years of this. Here is a meaningless piece of paper. So I've been to one of these before, and it should be like a really good fun time. And it'll be weird that we'll be in the same room as Edge.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Chris, you and I we're definitely going to be in attendance, aren't we? We're going to make the road trip down, and I guess it's so weird. Like, I guess we will go and we will network. Is that what people do? And we will rub the bellies of.
Just like people stood there, like, yeah, no, I think that I found, you know, when I was playing with when I was going through the latest Prey, I really found that the way that they handled the jump scares was a really intelligent way of handling horror and the feeling of the unknown. Yeah, that's true. But what's your favourite crisp?
I know.
Have you ever eaten half a plate of meat?
Oh.
What's your cinema scam? Like, ridiculous.
Oh,
like,
dear.
Oh.
I think we're you know how some people when they go to awards evenings they've got, even though they don't think they're going to win, they have like their the acceptance speech just written in their pocket. I think we'll be the only people turning up having written everyone else's acceptance speeches.
Yeah.
And will genuinely get on the stage and have nothing to say.
Yeah.
Contribute.
Which will be great. So basically, I would say that the best thing that we can do is people should just suggest what we should say if we win.
Yeah, go for it. Who should we thank?
Yeah, who should we thank, basically? I'd like to thank Brannigan's.
No, because they're awful.
Yeah,
do you remember that we had those? And they were awful.
They were
just
great.
bad.
What are you talking about?
Pete.
You guys are on about them all the time.
Ham and
it
mustard
just turned out
Brannigan's.
that they were awful.
This is disgraceful.
I would like to thank the great nation of Slovakia.
Yep. Oh, that's
Brannigan's in
it.
Slovakia. There we go. Sam, who would you like to thank?
Oh, who would I like to thank?
Maybe all the staff at the hospital?
Yeah, thanks to all the staff at Warrington Urology Clinic.
Incredible.
Thanks for putting a pipe up my peeper.
I'm bringing it out again, because
Yeah.
putting it in there is one thing.
Getting parts 1 and 2 correct, vital.
Pete, important question. Is there food at this place?
Oh no.
I don't even know how you can even bear to think about such a subject at this moment.
You're going to eat them out of house and home. You'll walk in, they'll go, "Oh, it's a buffet, sir," and you'll go...
Just all you can hear during every acceptance speech is Chris just munching on crisps and sandwiches, just like, and it's like everyone's just like looking at him complaining. He's like, "Well, I'm never going to win."
So the reason that I actually like doing this podcast is because we tend to talk about games that we actually like, and because there's so many different like groups of people talk about stuff that they're like, "Oh, I didn't really like this," or "This was a bit average," or whatever. So I like talking about stuff I like, and I really want to talk with you about Polytopia, but I don't want to turn this into like, because I really love it, and we talked about it before about how I really do like it, and now the multiplayer mode is out. We've been playing that for a couple of months now. We played it on the little beta and stuff, and now we're playing the proper version and stuff, and I love it. I think it's the update that game has needed, and I thought that the single player game was good enough in and of itself. And Chris, you're nodding your head like, "Yeah, this is a good game. I like this game." And then Sam, you're sat there like,
I don't like this game. So
Would you want to explain what Polytopia is very quickly? Because I know we've talked about it before, but new listeners may not know what it is.
Okay, yeah, so there is another podcast that you can listen to that's got a deeper explanation of it, but it's basically a streamlined mobile version of Civilization, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically a game in which you start off with one little town, you have to build out that town with different resources and different buildings and different unit types, and get to the highest score, or reach a certain score, or defeat all of your enemies. And it's if you think of it as it is to Civilization as Super Mario Run is to the original Super Mario Brothers. So it's that. And now it's got a multiplayer version where you can play it online, cross-platform with all your pals on iOS and Android. And yeah, I love it. There you go. I think it's great.
The thing that's quite deceptive about Polytopia that I quite like is that when you start playing it, you're literally on your own. There's barely a lot you can afford at that point. It's just one figure in your own little settlement. Yeah. And to start off with, the goes are pretty quick. Each go can last about 5-10 seconds. And then obviously the more points or currency you accrue to spend on things, goes can then suddenly last up to 2 minutes. So it slowly increases. It slowly ratchets up the amount of time you need to spend deliberating on the choices you made. And we've had a number of conversations about this because we've had a couple of, well, at least one instance of a multiplayer game that went south quite quickly. Got very frustrating, and it felt very territorial. It felt that actually this game was just all about combat. It was thinly veiled. It was all about combat. And, there's lots of bonuses you can get. The pacifist trophy. There's a meditation temple that you want to build. But why do I need to build a meditation temple if Sam is blowing me out of the water? Surely I should really try and get a battleship rather than building a temple, because that's not going to save me. And to start off with, I was kind of siding with Sam that it's the luck of the draw. Sometimes you can literally be boxed in and people are just surrounding you based on the luck of the draw where you start, because the way it works is you've kind of got that fog of war. It's this huge map, but until you explore that area, it doesn't reveal itself to you. And there was this wonderful bit I think Dan put on the Snapchat. He was somewhere on the map and he could just see above the clouds there's just smoke rising. He's like, what's going on down there? The rest of us knew what was happening. Because I stupidly, because with a multiplayer game, you can bring in an AI, which I think there was like easy, medium, hard. I think one was just called crazy. And I thought crazy meant that it was just random. You could not predict it, but actually crazy is one more harder than hard. Yeah. And it just wiped us out. It wiped me out completely, and that wasn't very fun. But what has happened in the most recent game that we're currently playing, it's quite a big game we're currently playing, is that we've actually opened a WhatsApp chat. Very similar to what happened with Subterfuge. Yeah. And actually what's happened now is that I haven't attacked anyone yet. And what I've discovered actually is that I'm less afraid of meeting new people, because when you encounter another tribe, i.e. another player, they will impart upon you a new skill that you don't know already. So I met somebody the other day, they taught me how to sail. Great, I don't need to spend money to unlock that. Somebody taught me how to climb. Brilliant, great, I don't need to unlock that. And it's become quite pleasant, actually.
Because you've got the ability to communicate through this third-party channel, there is this way of saying, I'm just coming through your area, I just want to explore. It's not necessarily... Because when you haven't got the ability to communicate, you see any movement of a unit towards one of your bases as aggressive.
Yeah, of course.
Which you should, because obviously the game does still prioritise, I would say, aggression more than peaceful tactics. There is a little bit more of a push towards that, I would say.
But I know what Sam's going to say, and the fact, I mean, we're using a third-party piece of software to make the game more pleasant. Without that, the game would be this kind of dog-eat-dog world. And I don't know whether it's the fact that I don't know all the people personally that we're playing with, because you've created this group, Willington. So I don't know whether that changes the dynamic somewhat. I can't put a name to these faces. In fact, until I meet this tribe, I don't know who is what tribe. I've not, for example, encountered Alex yet. I don't think I've even met you yet, Pete.
No, not yet.
So that maybe that changes the dynamic somewhat. But there is that is actually a flaw in the game. Then surely that we're having to resort to using something like WhatsApp.
There's basically no diplomacy.
No.
Like that, and it's the same in the single player. Once the enemy AI starts coming after you, that's it. Like, they are always going to come after you. So there is definitely a funnel towards aggression. If you certainly in some of the modes, which are all about elimination, but in the 10,000 point challenge that we've got, where you have to hit that level to actually win the game, it's the first person to do that. There are more options, I think. It isn't just... You can choose to be aggressive, but the last game I played, I was pretty peaceful. This game, I'm being pretty peaceful at the moment. And I've chosen a tribe that is specifically geared towards that kind of peace. Here we go.
Can we have a drum roll for the Sam Turner butt?
But I guarantee the only way that you've been allowed or available to be peaceful is that you've got enough land to do stuff with. Oh, I've got enough, you've been given enough randomly chosen land to be able to go, well, I can just farm this and I can just organise that. I can hunt those animals. I can build something here. I can connect something here. This is fine. I don't need to attack because I've got plenty to be getting on with, in my homestead. If you don't have that, if you're just randomly given like a couple of plots of land, then the only choice you have to expand is to go out and be forceful and to attack people.
But you can always find an empty village that isn't owned by any
players. You can always find an empty village, but the players who have more available to them from the starting outpost are able to create more from the start, therefore able to expand quicker and faster. Because you've only got a small area of land, you can't produce and regenerate the resources in time. Basically, what I'm saying is it will take you more turns to explore the surrounding area if you've got less resources to start with than it will with someone who's got more resources to start. So they will benefit earlier from being able to collect other villages because they're in a greater advantage.
If you don't choose a tribe that is able to mitigate that. So, for example...
Yeah, but you choose a tribe before you're shown the land that you're getting.
Absolutely. That's why, if you want to ensure that you can explore the lands really, really quickly, you choose Umaji, because they have the ability of horse riding tech. So if you want to get out and explore really, really fast, you don't have to research horse riding. You don't have to build a horsey. You can just get on your horsey and start exploring very, very quickly at twice, in fact, I think twice, maybe 3 times the rate. And
then what happens if you're in an area of land, which I was once, surrounded by water?
Yeah, so absolutely, that is a little bit more difficult. However, there are other races, like, for example, the Aquarion, who are able to do...
But you don't know that before going in.
Yes, absolutely. And there is an element of randomness, and it can lead...
Not an element, the whole game is based around randomness.
But the
game for me...
Yeah.
starts and ends within the first 2 turns, because you look at the land you've got and you go, right, this is my lot, this is what I've got, because by the time I get to a position where I can actually go and attack and produce and go in and venture forth, there's not going to have a chance. The game that we're playing now, it's over for me. It's over. We've played about 4 turns. It's over. There's just nothing I can do because the resources aren't available to me.
Yeah.
The position in the world has, due to the randomness of it, has closed me off to certain obstacles. And because the only thing that you've got to your advantage is aggression in order to overthrow places, we can use a third-party app to negotiate, and I'm fine with that, but why isn't there a mechanic that says, if you give me this, I'll exchange it for that. I'll give you 2 stars in exchange for maybe a square of your land that I can farm and I can cultivate for my own. Basically for me, the game, even though I think it is wonderful, it's too random, and it has one mechanic, which is just attack. And if you can't fend off an attack, then you lose.
So I disagree. Obviously I disagree. I think that there's absolutely an element of randomness, but it's not a game that is completely down to...
Not an element, it is random.
I don't think the game is down to luck. I think that you can, if you are a skilled player, you can overcome most situations in the same way that you can... when you come up against luck in something like a Star Realms... or something where there is a random element, you can mitigate it through the use of skill. Sometimes, yes, you're completely right. I have played Games of Polytopia where I've been in situations where I'm like, I really don't know how I'm going to get out of this, or I am at a severe disadvantage at this point. I agree with you. And I do think that could be rectified with, say, for example, maps, specifically constructed maps. So you would be able to choose between 5 or 6 different maps. Like Age of Empires, for example, did that really, really well. And then I would also say that the other side of things is I don't actually think aggression is the only mechanic, because I have won before not being aggressive. I have.
But is that because you had enough land available to you to build the resources and do everything that you wanted to do without having to be aggressive?
I did have enough land, but I didn't have the most land. In fact, I didn't have as much as one of my aggressive neighbours, but I did still win. And that was because they spent so much of their time going down the military route rather than me, which I was like, right, I immediately got to meditation. Because I had meditation, I could immediately create a brain washer, whatever they're called. I can't remember what they're called.
Yeah.
Which allows me to convert enemy units, and I just turtled up. And then as soon as they came near me, I just converted them. And then I was like, no, now they're mine. And then I could take those, convert those, kill them up, kill my own units off, convert them back into resources, and keep building up, keep turtling. And that was a perfectly valid strategy. So I agree. It's not perfect, absolutely, and I definitely do think that it is a game that could get better with a lot more diplomacy stuff, like a lot more options to win. But yeah, I don't know. I've not had the problems that you've had with it, basically.
I think it's also the fact that it might be for you, Sam, more enjoyable as a single player experience than it is multiplayer, because if, as you say, Sam, you've been dealt a tough, difficult hand, which I know exactly what that's like, you can opt out of that straight away and say, I'm not feeling this. But if there's that kind of pressure in a multiplayer game, am I the one who wants to pull the plug on this?
Yeah.
Considering the fact that we have 24 hours to take our go. And when did we start playing our current game? Sam says we've had 4 goes. How long have we been playing?
5 or 6 days ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very slow.
It drags that out, doesn't it, really? That frustration.
It definitely does. There are still, for example, there are still some notification problems with this multiplayer update. Like, every once in a while, I just won't get a notification. Every once in a while, it will forget, like Dan's experiencing a thing where it will forget the turns that he did. And
I've had that.
Yeah, I've had that, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. It's got teething problems at the moment, this multiplayer.
But it is a gorgeous game, and it is a kind of a nice pick up and play kind of game.
Yeah.
It's quite intuitive. It's very, very light Civ in some areas. But I think at the moment, for me, it works much better as a single player experience than it does as a multiplayer experience, unless I've got that I'm mitigating some of that fear and frustration with something like WhatsApp as a means to kind of keep everything as pacifist as I can, ultimately, so I can actually go and enjoy what it is to explore and build stuff and actually watch my empire develop.
Your civilization, one might say, because obviously the other part of this is I've also been, well, you and I, Sam, we've been playing Civ 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, so because we had this conversation about Polytopia, where I was trying to get to the bottom of what it is that you didn't like about Polytopia. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And one of the things that you said was that you wanted a game that explained or showed the progression of a civilization through the ages. And I was like, well, Civ is the game that does that. And it's very much Polytopia is very much mobile Civ. So I was like, okay, well, let's play this. And if you don't like Civ, then you don't like these kinds of games. And that's okay. So we were playing Civ 5. You had like a poodle around on it for like half an hour, and then we got into a multiplayer game and we started playing it. And I was telling you a couple of bits and pieces of like some of the finer points, like some of the weird like stuff hidden away in different menus. Have you been? I'm assuming you've been enjoying it. You haven't just been.
Well, yeah, we've put about 6 hours
in 2 sessions.
Behind Civ 5, which has been incredible, and it is exactly. And I don't want to bash on Polytopia because it's kind of like it's kind of like saying, because it kind of feels like I'm saying I like the game because it's got a bigger budget, bigger scope. It's on a PC,
yeah,
and it just feels like I'm bashing on the game because it's just a slimmed down version of Civ 5. Yeah. But of course it is, because that's its selling point. My problem with Polytopia is the fact that I just feel like there's just one way to go about diplomacy, and there's just one way to go around interacting with other players. And what I love about Polytopia, the progression, the act of seeing your civilization go from this very small set of ruins to this grand temple within the desert, like I think that's beautiful. And Civ 5 in the expansive way that it does everything that it does allows me to see that. So I'm playing as the USA, you're playing as India, we're playing as a team.
Oh yeah.
And I love it.
Can I ask, because I've never played Civ, how does it work in multiplayer mode? You're playing as 2 very distinct civilizations. Geographic, how does that work?
Well, it kind of fudges. It fudges. So you're not like, so even though you're playing 2 very recognizable global superpowers, you're not playing on the natural globe. You're playing on a completely random topography. So the like Machu Picchu can be in Germany.
Yeah.
and the Great Wall of China could technically be in India, and all these kind of things. Like, so it fudges a lot of the histrionics and the history behind the familiar sort of traits and tropes of these nations that you're playing with.
So basically, geology either happens a lot quicker or a lot slower in this world.
So one of the things I will say is games of Civ usually take 20, 25, 30 hours, if the kind of stuff that we're playing on, the kind of world scale that we're playing on. There are a lot of different options. So, for example, we could play a map that was representative of the real globe. Like, we could do that with starting positions for all of the nations in the right places. We could do that if we wanted to. In terms of how the game actually mechanically plays, again, we talked about Civ 6, it's the same kind of deal there, but it is a turn-based game in which you move around on hex grids, and you have cities and you have units, and in the cities you can build upgrades, so you can focus on, let's say, for example, banking, and banking will give you access to more money, and if you have more money, you can buy units rather than produce units. Or you could focus on production, i.e. you build mines, and then if you've got lots of production, you can build things for free, but it takes X number of turns to do that. And each path is totally valid. This is vanilla, by the way, that we're playing. If people if you've played Civ before, so we're playing vanilla Civ.
Neapolitan.
Yeah. And now I say it's turn-based. Online, we are playing. I believe it's called Hybrid, which is where, because Sam and I are on the same team, we both take our turns at the same time, then all of the opposing factions play their turn, then the barbarians play their turn, and I think the city-states take their turn at the same time as the barbarians. I think that's how it works. You can play turn-based, you can play all at the same time. So there's a lot of flexibility in Civ as to how that works out. And we're rocking it, basically. I'm Gandhi, and I'm just trying to keep my people happy at the moment. That's the big problem that I've got. There's loads of unhappiness being caused because I keep building cities, and they don't like that at all.
And and I think that what boils down to it is that's the crux. That's what I love about Civ 5, and I think that's the simulation. That's a tactical part of these games that I love. Is that you can be trying for one thing,
yep,
but your civilization is calling for you to address a different problem that's been caused by the thing that you're going after. So I was in a similar situation to what Pete was. So I was going for rapid expansion and rapid growth, and I tried to settle loads and loads of colonies, thinking, yes, bigger is better. This is what Polytopia has taught me. Bigger is better. Let's get out. Let's expand our reach amongst this world. But then my population grew unhappy because there was so many people and so much rapid expansion. All the resources and the food and the wealth were spread amongst so many more people, so they grew unhappy. So I had to work out strategically and tactically how I was going to start to actually manage the resources and manage the food and the room available to me to stop my sort of civilization from crumbling from within. And I think that's the crux of what I love about these games, and I think that just comes from a hefty exposure to board games, which I think are a lot more, in terms of mechanics and detail, can be a lot more nuanced in the way that they deal with different player states and
particularly Euro games.
As particularly Euro games, yeah. And I think that's kind of what I wanted from Polytopia. I didn't get it, which is why I've just bounced my head against it. The fact that there was no consequence for rapid expansion, there was no consequence for going down a particular pathway, you're just allowed to do it. And there's no consequence for being overly aggressive, you just win. Like in Civ 5, if you're overly aggressive, other nations can go, hang on, you're not behaving very well, so we're going to respond and back up this nation and say, we denounce you as a nation.
We know how you love treaties, Sam.
Yeah, I do love a treaty. I've got a couple going at the moment. They're great. So I think it's that flexibility. And again, like, I hate to rib on Polytopia because it's just doing what it does, and it's kind of perfect for what it is. And my problems with it are it isn't just a big budget PC game, like
right.
and it's not like that's not available for me to play.
And can I ask, like, are there like, because I'm really curious, you've really piqued my interest in Civ, and like I love that idea. I haven't played a simulation game in a while. Are there levels to it? How does it work? You know, are there levels? Are they broken down by eras? Like, if you're going, how far back are you starting with this civilization?
So you start, I believe, at 4000 BC, or maybe 3000, and you take it from. Again, it depends. It depends when you want to start the game. You could start in the Industrial Age if you want, but the general way that you play this game is you start in the prehistoric. And
the Big Bang.
The Big Bang. You just next turn, next turn. And basically you start off with basically a one unit that is able to found a city, and you think, right, where am I going to found my city? And you go, right, I'm going to put it there, and then everything then begins. You do have different ages, so you will progress through things like the Renaissance and the Industrial, and then the Information Age, and those kinds of things. And each of those ages is unlocked by researching along different parts of the tech tree. And the tech tree is so let's say, for example, you study writing, you use your science. So science is like a resource. Use your science to study writing, and then you discover writing. And now, because you've discovered writing, you have access to certain new buffs for your civilization.
A lot like Seven Wonders, if you think of it.
Yeah, that's like what I'm kind of thinking about, actually. Seven Wonders.
So it is along those lines in that way for a tech tree. And then once you've unlocked a certain number of different tech trees, then you get into that next era, and new units get to get unlocked and that kind of thing. In terms of board games, you're right to point out that it feels a lot like one, because it is heavily inspired by the original 1980 board game called Civilization. In fact, I get the feeling that because I think it was Microprose. I think it was Microprose when they first put this out. Yeah, it was, as a publisher. Sid Meier put all of this stuff together, and obviously Sid Meier, big video game developer, designer dude, was inspired by lots of board games at the time, and Civilization, which is massive, and I would love to play at some point. The board game, I think, was a big inspiration for this. And but for me, that beyond the mechanics, beyond how complex it, and there's a ton of complexity in here. The thing I love about it is it's a storytelling engine. So at the moment, one of the great things is that Sam is America and I am India, and at the moment we're playing together. So we're sharing our technologies and stuff like that, and we're working together so that we can be the dominant superpower. And the Aztecs decided that this wasn't going to happen. So they were like, right, and so they came after Sam. And the Aztecs were like, hey, we got these cool Jaguar units. So they went after Sam's stuff, and Jaguar units pretty powerful early on. And Sam decimated them, right? Like, they really should not have picked the fight that they picked. And then Sam went after them and just started going after their cities and entering those spaces.
The Great Purge.
Oh yeah, like there was a war that went on for like 100 years between the Americans and the Aztecs, and it was incredible. Like taking out cities and after all that sort of stuff. And you get the feeling that the Aztec leader, this terrible situation of, I've got these amazing things right now, and then the age turned just at the wrong moment, and then suddenly Sam's able to take the fight back to them, and now the Aztecs have made a deathly enemy, and they're going to get wiped out.
Oh my gosh! So when does Wakanda enter the war?
But it's that horrible. You do get a bit of a horrible imperialist feeling with it.
Oh yeah,
because the Aztecs sort of went after me with their Jaguar units and their men with spears, and I just fought back with whatever I can, and then I've rocked up on their shores with my catapults and my chariots and my archers, and then I'm just about sending like a musket unit to like overthrow their cities. But that's kind of the push and pull of how civilization works in terms of the resources. It's kind of like we were pushed into a position where we were like, okay, we're at war with this nation. We're at war. So suddenly I just, had to change my tactics and change how I was going to do and start to research different elements of this war regime.
Yeah.
And when you start pooling all your resources into that area, everything else becomes a lot a lot lax. So the Aztec nation had spent ages building up this massive army to take me on. And in this instance, they failed. So when it became my turn to take them on, they'd used up all that time and resources and failed. And fortunately, I've started to succeed and push them back and take over their cities because they haven't got anything to defend themselves because they gambled on the wrong move and on the wrong series of events. And that's what I think that's kind of, that is what I love about the game. The fact is there is that timing, that strategy to it, and it allows those stories to come from it. And you do feel what would have been bad is if I'd done all that and then not felt slightly dirty afterwards and just gone, the stupid Aztecs. Like I do feel slightly bad for taking over this like beautiful nation and overrunning it just because they attacked me. I could have gone down a completely different path and just said, let's just make peace. But I've just gone on and just like, at one point I did make peace and actually said to them, I will attack you again unless you give me 12 gold per turn. And so I was...
Did your president tweet that?
George Washington did not tweet that. But that's what I mean. The fact it kind of does give me that horrible, dirty, disgusting feeling of being an imperialist nation means that the game is working and it's kind of teaching me a lot about like civilization and growth and expansion. And can I ask just one question? Can you have civil wars? So, for example, could your own civilization kind of try and topple you?
So that is somewhat represented in Civilization 5 Vanilla. So the community calls it Vanilla. Vanilla essentially just means there are no DLCs that have been added onto this. So there are other DLCs and there are other sequels where it's explored a little bit more. In Civ 5 Vanilla, when you take over an enemy city, the city will be under a state of chaos until you can build a courthouse, which brings in justice, which means that the population there feel like they have justice. So they basically that city will be like, okay, now we're fine under your rule because we realise that we're not being oppressed. You can also, your citizens can become unhappy and they can start starving. And at that point, your city doesn't grow anymore. It just sits there and is kind of useless. And there are other negative penalties towards it. There aren't necessarily civil wars, as it were, in vanilla. But there are sort of hints at that. And you can see mechanically how they're trying to get across real concepts in how a society functions, like concepts like economics and war, for example. Like, let's say, for example, so my nation, India, at the moment, we're huddled up and we're just growing and expanding and being happy. And what we're trying to do actually is make a lot of money. Like, that's our big thing at the moment. That's what we're trying to push towards. Could have gone down the faith route, but I was like, nah. So
that's not Gandhi's way.
That's not Gandhi's way. I was like, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get hold of as many special resources as I possibly can, so I can keep my people happy for as long as possible, and therefore mitigate any problems that come with expanding, and then create a big trade network, and then that will allow me to make lots and lots of money, and I can speed up lots of things like that. If I were to suddenly invade Germany and go after Bismarck, which would be a bad move.
Which in this map is just down the road.
It is.
So pretty much is.
So if I were to invade Bismarck, the penalty for doing so with other nations, the AI nations, they would look at me and go, "This is clearly a warmonger. We need to deal with this
Gandhi.
With Gandhi." So therefore, if I were to wage war all of the time, then I would have a negative influence on the world stage. And again, that mirrors real life to some degree. You know, warlike nations that are aggressive and militaristic, tend to not have the backing of the UN.
But surely that would also because you're teamed up with Sam, surely that would also affect people's attitudes towards the USA if they see India doing that.
Yeah.
Like in terms of those repercussions, the politics in play there.
Yeah, so Vanilla Civ has some weirdness when you go online and do different online stuff. Like the Civ 5, when it was originally released, was kind of a little bit broken online. And they've gone back and done a lot of work, and it's perfectly fine now. But there are some weirdness stuff when you play as teams. So funnily enough, Sam and I are on the same team, working together for the same causes, and everyone knows that. But he was at war with the Aztecs, and I was mates with them. So I was mates with them, and they declared war on me because I was technically an ally of Sam's.
God, that's very Shakespearean.
Yeah. Sam, I am slightly concerned that you've started a WhatsApp group away from the holiday WhatsApp group that we've created. You've created a separate sub-WhatsApp group that's... I can't even remember what the title of it is, but it's
just holiday games.
Holiday games.
Just holiday games.
Now, basically this is a group in which we are... every once in a while chatting about what games are going to be taken with us on the holiday, okay?
Yeah.
Now, Chris and I were looking at... Chris, you sent me over a link to a video that Rahdo did. I know I like Rahdo. He's like a YouTuber who does... Basically, he plays the games that I like, because he basically plays like two-player, usually cooperative games with his partner, and that's kind of what I like doing. I really like his stuff. But he made like a holiday games list.
Yeah, with a cardboard rhino, who's a Maltese YouTuber who also reviews board games.
Now, because she's a YouTuber, isn't she?
Yes, she is.
Yeah, she is. Her list was excellent.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, there's a couple of slightly like left of field things here, but generally quite nice. His one, Intense. Like he was talking about taking stuff like Shadowrun,
Crossfire.
And I was like, nah, Rahdo, you're wrong on this one. Now, Sam, you fall way more into the Rahdo camp.
No, I don't.
You absolutely do. What are you planning on bringing with you?
No, I'm sorry.
Twister.
I do not. So my games that I'm bringing are Cockroach Poker.
Okay, that's fine.
Kakerlaken.
That's just a deck of cards.
That's fine.
Right?
Yeah. Light.
Rhino Battle, the small version. That's just a deck of cards.
Are we playing this on a train?
No, we're playing it while we're out and about. Oh, right, we're going down to the Austrian pub for a meal and a drink.
Yeah.
I can just slip Cockroach Poker in my back pocket. Anyone fancy a game? It's just a deck of cards.
Okay.
It's fine.
So we're in the queue for the film to see Ready Player One.
Yeah.
And we're like, right, what else are you getting out?
Citadels, which is just a deck of cards and some coins.
Yeah, no, I know that they're small, but aren't they?
Yeah.
Isn't this quite complex?
What do you mean it's quite common? No. Cockroach Poker is the simplest game, one of the simplest games I've ever played.
What about Citadels?
Citadels, yeah, but I'm also thinking because we're going to 3 different cities,
right.
And for 2 of those cities we're staying in Airbnbs where we're going to have our own like dining table and place to hang out. So I'm imagining that sometimes when we come in of an evening, we might just fancy half an hour, 40 minutes where we just sit down and relax and we all play a game.
Right.
So my idea with the games that I'm taking is there's some that are like Cockroach Poker where we're just chilling out, having a few very, very cheap continental beers.
Nice.
And like joking about what we think's a rats or not. And then Citadels and especially Pit Crew. Especially Pit Crew. Pit Crew with a small C. Other games that are maybe are just as portable as all the other games, but offer just a little bit more complexity while we're going away. And I don't know. Some of them may work or some of them may not, but it's my first time going on holiday with lots of great friends.
This is actually really good public information because I've often found it. There are some lists online of travel games, but I've never actually done my own definitive list because generally when I go away travelling, I generally take Love Letter with me, pack of cards, and maybe Flux. I have taken Splendor away with me. If you take it out of the box, those poker chip things are quite chunky though and quite heavy, but it actually is just a deck of cards and some poker chips, and then you've got Splendor essentially. I've done that. I'm not taking Splendor this time, no way.
No, I think this time my list so far is Pit Crew, Cockroach Poker, Rhino Battle, the small version, Citadels, and maybe Dolores. But one of the reasons I might not take Dolores is it's maximum a 4-player game. Yeah. So I'm just like, do I want to bulk out like what I'm bringing just so I can get out a game and go, actually, no, you two can't play?
Yeah. But it's also another bluffing game, which is quite similar to Kakerlaken or Cockroach Poker.
That's true. That's true, actually. I was also thinking of just packing 1 pack of Codename cards, but, I'm just getting into one of those moods now where it's just like, well, if I'm bringing that, I might as well bring Codenames because that's an excellent party game, and forgetting that we're in Salzburg and Budapest and like there might be other things to do.
Well, I looked through my collection of games, and I'm going to bring with me Sushi Go because you requested that, and
I think Sushi Go is a great one because that's kind of like a good. We're also going to be at airports and at train stations.
Yeah.
And, Sushi Go is just kind of like, does anyone fancy a round?
Yeah.
And
I think that'll be great. We're going to bring Dobble, which I've never played before.
Dobble's great fun.
Chris likes Dobble.
Okay, so we'll play some Dobble, and that'll be great. Now, I'm looking at the rest of my collection. There's not a lot in there that I would think...
Space Hulk? No.
Yeah, absolutely. I was sort of looking at Descent and thinking... I looked at Descent and thought, it's only 5-player, isn't it? But I've realised actually that I've got quite a lot of complex games because, I've just been, I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point, but Race for the Galaxy. Like, I've got games like that and Descent and, as you mentioned, like Space Hulk and Blood Bowl and, what else? Arkham Horror and all that sort of stuff. They're a bit more complex. There's not a lot of light stuff over there.
No, you don't have. You do have some light games.
There's a few.
You have. I'll tell you one game that you should bring. That you should definitely bring. No thanks.
No, because actually, I don't think it's a good travel game. Because it's got
because of the
tiny little
red
chips.
counters?
Yeah, they're hard enough to keep in your bloody hands as it is.
I might bring Oh My Goods, which is a nice little engine building game.
Good choice.
Coo's quite good. I might bring Coo.
Yeah. That could be good. I think anything that should be brought, and I agree with Pete actually, which is one reason why I might not bring Citadels, but but the thing is, Citadels, you could easily replace the counters with some shitty Euros or, whatever.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah, you could easily replace it if I lost them. But I'm just thinking of any game that's like a pack of cards, because I'm pretty convinced that I can fit the pack of cards inside the box of Pit Crew.
Yeah.
So if I only need to take one box, and that's brilliant. All the games in one box.
Right. And not to offend our European listeners as well, but when we say shitty Euros, we mean like small denomination Euros.
Yeah, just like the small ones.
Rather than like...
We're having our own problems over here. It's not like we can... It's not like we can laugh at anyone else's currency or current political situation. Like
Annihilation's a film on Netflix. Alex Garland's new film.
Pete, you would genuinely love it.
Why? But why would I like it?
First of all, it's science fiction.
Okay, it's one tick.
One tick. It's written by Alex Garland.
Yep, don't know who that is.
He wrote Sunshine.
Okay, tick 2. Yep.
He also wrote The Beach.
And The Beach. He wrote and directed Ex Machina.
No, you've got me with the one with the... is Sunshine the one where he looks at the sun and then he goes mad?
Well, not Alex Garland in particular, but yes, a character does.
Looks at the sun and goes mad.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was his pitch. I'm sure that was his elevator pitch, and they just went, yeah, whatever, Alex. Make it. Yeah.
Okay, that's tick 2. I need 3 ticks.
Oh.
How many ticks do you need to watch a film?
I need 3 ticks.
3. So your third tick would that it features Natalie Portman.
It's pretty much an all-women cast, so it's very progressive.
All right, tick 3. Yeah, that's fine.
Hang on. It's like the dramatic version of Ghostbusters.
Yep, tick 4.
Okay, tick 4. We got him there. Yep. Well, it is, Chris. Come on, it's a bunch of scientists.
What popped in there?
It's a bunch of scientists all wearing brown, venturing into a situation where none of them know what's going to happen. It's basically Ghostbusters.
Is it a comedy?
No, it's not. That's why I said it's a dramatic version of Ghostbusters.
You can have a dramatic comedy.
Well, yeah, it's true. So basically, the premise is a meteorite crash lands on Earth.
Yep.
And it creates this little force field around it they call the shimmer, and it's slowly expanding outwards.
Okay.
And the government has sent in teams of people in there, and they've never heard from them since. And Natalie Portman's character, her husband was actually a part of a special ops unit who went into this, and she hasn't heard from him since.
Right.
Her being ex-military and a biologist,
yes.
She volunteers to join the team of researchers to go in there, because previously all the people being sent in there have been military people, but now it's actually a team of researchers to go in there, try and get to the centre of where the meteorite landed and find out what is causing this shimmer, and how they can possibly stop it.
So the other interesting thing about this film is not only its premise, but also contextually how this film actually came about. So this is a proper big-budget feature film produced by Paramount, I want to say.
Skydance, I think, yes, Skydance, and yeah.
And it was released nationwide in America, like a national sort of picture cinema release. But in our country and the rest of the world, it was bought by Netflix because the studio deemed it too smart for a general cinematic release.
Wow.
So they basically thought, oh no, this is going to fail. A bit like what happened with the Cloverfield paradox.
Yeah, which is probably one of the smartest avoidances of a flop ever.
Because I think that was made for something like 30 million and Netflix bought it for 50 million because the studio were convinced it was going to flop, and it was. Apparently it's awful. You've seen it, haven't you, Chris?
I have seen it, yeah, it's all right.
So this is kind of a similar deal here, is the fact that, you know, this a film that was made for a nationwide, worldwide cinema release, but that's been brought by Netflix, and in this country at least, and in Europe and the rest of the world, has been put on to Netflix, which makes it kind of like a cultural pin, if you want, into this kind of new era of digital distribution that they're in. But unlike the Cloverfield paradox, Annihilation is actually a fantastic film, and I am in agreement with Alex Garland, actually, who was initially, and probably remains so, annoyed that this was never released in cinemas, because I would have loved to have seen this in the cinema.
It's a really interesting point Sam's makes, because it was on Netflix, like, I just popped it on while I was having a line in bed in the morning, because, you know, one could easily read...
Chris, Jesus Christ, having a line in bed, I know what I want, a 2-hour hard sci-fi experience.
Well, that's the thing, Sam, because even though I knew it was Alex Garland, and I love Sunshine, I own Sunshine as well and things, and I like Ex Machina, because it was on Netflix, I thought, oh, it's like survival horror, it's like Predator, I can just watch that in bed and it's just something a bit mindless. This is not a mindless film, it is a very mindful film, and I was completely watching it in the wrong frame of mind. And 2 hours pass, and, you know, I had to start the day, you know, mulling over all these ideas and all these moments that happen into it, and these ideas that it's putting forward. But it's up there, and because it was on Netflix, I was watching it in the totally wrong frame of mind. And it is an astonishing film. Right. Though visually, it's visually arresting, it's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does look great.
But just some incredible moments, absolutely incredible moments. And looking back at it as well, rewatching certain moments, because I've watched lots of retrospective kind of analyses of the film. There's some really clever cinema uses of cinematography and things that kind of thematically link together kind of all the ideas it's trying to put to the table. And it's a kind of it's a blessing that I was able to get it so quickly on my tablet, but it's also a bit of a curse, unfortunately, because it wasn't in a cinema screen, it wasn't an event, which it should have been an event. I wasn't really treating it in the same way that I should have. I wasn't treating it in a way that I felt the film demanded to be treated.
Yeah, and there's certain things that Alex Garland does with the camera where it's obvious that his intention was, this is going to be this shot right here. Imagine this shot on a massive multiplex cinema screen.
Right.
Not thinking 6 months down the line that Chris is going to be watching it in his fucking bedroom on a tablet. Like, so some shots just look weird because they've been shot for a cinema screen, but they're ended up on like a TV screen instead. And so it kind of just like, I think if I'd watched this in a cinema screen, I think I'd be a lot happier to recommend it. I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more, but that's just part of that just throwaway disposability of it being on Netflix.
Right.
That it makes it a bit more difficult to recommend. Because if you say to someone, oh, right, you got to watch this thing on Netflix, like, they'll go, yeah, that's brilliant, but I've got 5 other documentaries and 10 other series that I'm trying to go through. I'm trying to watch 7 Seconds, and I'm trying to watch Making a Murderer, and I'm watching Doctor Who again, and all this kind of stuff.
I'm trying to watch the Star Trek original series animated, the 3 seasons of the animated show at the moment.
So when you go on Netflix, you go on that, don't you? You don't go searching for new content and all that kind of stuff to watch.
I'm going to watch the thing that one person recommended me, because you always get... There's always a dozen people say, "Oh, you got to watch this. Oh, you got to watch it." It's like,
and I would have loved to come out of Annihilation with someone and gone, "What did you think that was about? What was your thought? What did you think was happening there? What?" But instead, I'd finished it and made myself a sandwich, and
you couldn't even do your cinema grift, Sam.
I couldn't even do my cinema grift, which is the most disappointing thing about not going to the cinema these days.
God, this has been a weirdly political podcast.
It has, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've touched on Sam. We have touched on religion, politics.
Yeah.
We've touched on. What else have we done? We've talked about imperialism.
Yeah, we did that.
We've talked about the military,
but. I would argue, Peter, that has been in some respects mitigated by the gratification we've given to Brannigan's Great Nation of Slovakia and the entire medical staff of Warrington Hospital.
Urology clinic, yeah.
Brilliant.
So I think balance has been restored. Harmony has been achieved. That was Staying In with Peter Willington, Sam Turner and myself, Chris Darby. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Mixcloud, Acast, Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you prefer to get your podcasts. If you'd like to leave a review too, we'd be really grateful. Visit stayingin.podbean.com for more information and links to all the things we've covered in this episode. And come find us on Twitter @StayingInPod. Thanks for listening.